Welcome to the Daily Awesome Podcast. I'm Steve Mayeda, and today we're going to talk about confidence, sex, and masculinity, male confidence, and how we tap into this. This is like a big thing, but we're not only going to talk about it in a way of defining it, we're going to talk about how to get it. So this is really important. We're going to go through all the steps and phases of how men deal with this and where this actually comes from. It comes from our call, which is happening live right now, our Men's Development Excellence Call. Man, it's an amazing thing. It's October 11th, 2017, and we have 10 guys from all around the world right now who are talking about this, and we've discussed it pretty heavily. This is one of those things that comes up all the time about how can we be a better man? How can we get more women? How can we have better sex? How can we feel confident in ourselves? And it's rooted all this crap. Look, guys, if you want to plug into a community where we work through this and there's men who tell the real story of how they've, walked through life and gained confidence, that's exactly what we're talking about. And that's the point of this podcast, to bring it to you guys. So if you want to get involved, in any of our free stuff as well, free communities, free video courses on getting in shape, video courses on talking to women, ebooks, so on, all this sort of stuff, man, click the free stuff link down below and get involved. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't be a hater. Don't be a hater. Some guy said, oh, if I join your $60 a month club, is my life going to get better? Haha. Yes, it fucking will, man. We're badass dudes. We don't talk shit online for a fucking way of asserting ourselves. In any case, let's get into this. So confidence. People, we all want it. We want this. This is something that we look at so much as men. And the problem is that it miscommunicates. So what I want to break down now is part of the process and how we look to gain confidence. There's a group of men who we've all been in there, and we can be there again, where we don't have confidence, maybe in a certain area of our life. Maybe that's starting a business, maybe that's talking to women, maybe that's how we assert ourselves in front of other people, but we don't have a lot of confidence. And when we don't have a lot of confidence, we look at confidence as this thing which is unattainable, or it's attained only through certain things. And then there's this other group of men who have it. And they're saying things like, oh man, you just got to get started. Oh, you got to have faith in the system. You got to get competent. You got to gain functionality. You have to gain faith in self. You have to be able to assert you and be in the place at the right time and work hard and all these other things. And they don't communicate to one another. So let's put this in perspective. The guy who doesn't have any confidence, it's something new that he's starting, is listening to the dudes who do have confidence. Man, they're going to hear things like, okay, if I just get started, or if I just get to know myself better, man, how's that going to work? Or if I gain faith in the system, or I gain competency, what's going on? I want to win. I want to make it happen. So what we're sharing here is the translation in between those two things, because we've just been discussing it heavily on this call. But also, in addition to that, we want to define what confidence is. So what is confidence? Because the road to confidence, how you get confidence, is dependent upon knowing what it is. The best definition that I have for you today, and we're always working this, we're always changing it, because hey, we're always working with men at 24 hours a day in our groups. But the thing is confidence actually is defined currently by myself and our groups as being able to be yourself, independent of your surroundings. So that means that you can be yourself and be who you are, no matter what the challenge is. Independent of the loss, independent of the win, independent of course, the situation. But what we tend to make confidence about is the win, the social acceptability, or that if we have a loss, that somehow that affects our confidence in some way, or if we go through a way of life without winning, that we won't have any confidence. So if confidence is this sense of self, this ability to be oneself, independent of our surroundings, and, when we're challenged at high levels of our life, then how do we get that? How do we get that sense of comfort, that sense of who we are, no matter what our surroundings are? And this is where things can get a little bit murky for a guy starting out on the road. So if you're starting out in any of your life, whether that's, dating or fitness, or your mentality or your career path or your relationship and so on, what we need to shape as men what we need to, so that we can get in touch with our sex again, so we don't have to reach out to all these fantasy ideas of being a hero or being larger than life or gaining power over women just to see, to have them in our life or whatever it is, that we can relax and let our expression come out. If you're a guy that is just starting out on this road, here's where you got to start. Number one is you have to get the wins. You have to get competent. You have to gain functionality in whatever area of your life you're looking to improve. Now, we all see those wins and we go like, okay, I'm going to be on top. We see winning as defined by our pain. And I'm not talking about that. But we need to stop living purely out of our pain and fear. So our pain and fear tells us win, win, win. Be the best, be better than everybody so that we're not made fun of, we're not shamed, we don't feel bad anymore. And if I just get that, I'm going to be happy. That's not the case. In fact, the real case is the road that gets you to success is not going to be the same road that maintains that success. So what I mean by that is if you lose a bunch of weight through whatever diet you do, perhaps you cut your calories, perhaps you go paleo, perhaps you go vegan, but that's a big break. That's a big shock. And after about 3 months or 6 months, you're going to start to hit your ideal weight or however long it takes. Maybe it takes a year, 2 years, and so on. But what keeps you at that weight is going to be much different. If you want to start making a bunch of money, you're going to have to work, produce all this stuff. You're going to have to sell whatever it is that you're doing to make money. But what gets you there is not going to be the same which keeps you there. Same goes for every single area of your life. So what gets you success is not what's going to maintain your success. Now, that being said, we got to get some wins. So what are these wins? These wins are things like, this is working for me. This is allowing me to start having faith in the system, which is the next phase of it. So that when we start getting a few wins, and what I always say to people, especially with any behavioral change, it's important to get anywhere from 3 to 10 wins, 3 to 10 successes in whatever it is you're working at within a certain frame of time. This allows us to get comfortable, to not freak out, to not get scared when we find resistance and so on, so that we can go, okay, this works. So whether that's going up and approaching a woman, whether that's asserting yourself in a relationship, whether that is going through a tough challenge at your job or asserting yourself in terms of a project or with your boss, or even starting to lose weight, get in shape, those types of things. We want to see the gains. We want to see that this is working enough to the point where we gain faith that this can happen. So the next phase of this all, once we get that functionality, right, is we need to start gaining faith in the process. Faith in the process means that we can have losses. We can have setbacks. We will feel bad about them. They will make us feel not confident, make us feel doubt, make us feel all those things that might get triggered that comes into play with us wanting to change. It's like, fuck, man, I'm this fat dude, or fuck, man, I'm this guy that always loses, or man, I'm destined to be lonely. We may start thinking that, but we also have faith in a process that something is working. This is very, very important for behavioral change. So we're gaining faith in the process. We're able to lessen our fears by that. And that's one of these interesting things that one of the opposites of fear is faith. So if we start to have faith in something, I don't mean this in a religious context, then we lessen our fears about what we're feeling now. If we can know that the outcome may work, then we don't ruminate or obsess or get sidetracked by these things like God, man, what if this happens? Oh, if I get rejected, oh, if this doesn't work, what am I going to be? And so on and so on. But the real thing that we ultimately need to get to is sense of self. And this is the real cherry on top for it, okay? The sense of self is key, because ultimately confidence, if we go back to that definition of what we want, is being able to be oneself among some of the greatest challenges of our life. So being able to be oneself when we have good things, when we have bad things, when we have curveballs, which life is going to do. We're never going to have a life where we're not pressured as much as probably we already are right now. We're never going to have that. You should look at your now, your pain point of wanting to change as your standard. So that being said, how do we get to know ourselves? And this is the most elusive part and really one of the hardest parts. So getting to know oneself means that you got to look at the pain, you have to look at the fear, you have to look at the things that you doubt about yourself, and you have to look at why. One of the questions I always ask people, and what you should ask yourself right now, is to think about the thing which you're afraid of most. This could be not having money, this could be rejection, and so on. And then start thinking about what would happen if all of my greatest fears happened. Who would I be? What would that say about me? What would that prove? And so if we really walk down this rabbit hole a little bit more, is let's say, man, if I lost my family, this would be a terrible thing. I don't want that, man. That's something that I could fear big time. I mean, just thinking about it now does not make me feel good. But what would that say about me? What would that say? And why do I fear it so much? Because it would make me sad for my kids. It would make me sad that I wouldn't have this emotional connection. Okay, so I don't have this emotional connection. I don't have my kids around. They're in pain. What does that say about me? What does that say about my situation? What does it say about the things that I can change that are the expressions of me? Perhaps it might say something like, oh my God, I've let my family down. Perhaps it may say things like, man, I'm somebody that's unlovable. Perhaps it may say things that I'm somebody that is irresponsible. But perhaps it might say that I am a failure and that this world that I've built was just a front or just a thing that allowed me to not look at the reality of me. And these are things that all happen to us. When we get challenged with pain, we start thinking of these things. I want you to be able to go down those rabbit holes of self, because if we hide from them, when we have things like rejection or something doesn't work, this is that kind of voice, this is the deep voice which gets triggered in us. So ultimately, we have to learn to be okay with those things. But the self isn't just the ability to deal with the negative, and it's not just the ability to deal with the positive. It's the ability to be the expression of you without the need of the high and low. So we should also look at our positives. What are those? How do we act when we have something? This was actually one of the things on our $60 a month club, as that guy put it. I'm just going to keep referring it to MD Excellence as that. But on the $60 a month club, Terrence, one of the guys on our Sunday call, was talking about this. And I firmly believe this. This is actually a thing that him and I sync up like so uniformly on. But he's like, you really want to see how fucked up a person is, give them $1 million. If you want to see the flaws in somebody, give them success. Now, of course, it doesn't always bring the negative, but when we have success, how we handle it, what does that then say about us again? If I got something where I got a lot of validation of money or women or adoration or status or recognition for something that I worked at, how do I deal with it? Does this now mean I'm better than people? Does it now mean that I can speak more assertively? Does it now mean that I have, the right now to do some new thing or have power over people and so on? What is this saying to me? Because this is all false. This is a reaction to an event. This is a reaction to either winning or losing and how I deal with it. Now, don't get me wrong. We should be happy. We should celebrate. We should be affected by wins and losses in our life. That's very important to understand. But we also need to realize there's a difference between a celebration and, being happy about something and going through an emotional experience than an actual shaping of your identity, a shaping of you and fundamentally who you are. Those things, like your personal identity, take a long time to change and transition, and they do happen, and they're great. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about confidence, right? So in looking at our wins and looking at our losses, examining those, how we react to them, how we respond to them, how we react and respond positively and negatively, man, one of the things that we want to then get to is start to look at and analyze how we live normally. What are the things that keep us on track? As this actually came up, was a guy got some wins in one area of his life and he got some losses in other areas of his life, but he's walking out feeling good. And I was telling him, I'm like, man, that is the fire you need to stoke. That is the fire you need to keep burning. That's not the fire that you need to make raging. That's the fire that you need to keep alive. Because that's the fire that kills the darkness of doubt that comes in your life when you have those like big highs and lows and swings and all that other stuff. So how do we maintain that fire within us? How do we maintain our authenticity? How do we maintain our expression of self? And this is done with the even keel. So these are done through habits. These are done through recognition of our morals and personal philosophy. And these are done through our communities. And this is super, super important. So human beings, we're creatures of habit to so many degrees. Now, I know a lot of people like myself, I'm like a creative person, so I like to mix things up. But man, I do pretty much the same thing every day. And if I can start putting in things that affect me in a better way, that's key. So things like meditation, things like family time, things like the calls that I do, the interactions with my group, things that keep me sane, things that keep me on a good track of life are key. Now, another big part of that is community, man, that you are your friends. Now, there's a bunch of videos I have on your 5 closest friends and all that stuff and how much I dislike that phrase because, well, watch those videos. We'll put a link to them. But one of the reasons why I dislike it is because it somehow commodifies your friends, that if I could have rich friends, then I'm going to be rich. No, what I'm talking about is I value my community. People around me are people that I number one like, but they're also people that usually do a lot of the things that I do because I love to do them. And in that, hopefully they're people that try to achieve a good spot in those. And some of my friends that aren't big goal achievers, because so many of my friends are in the recovery scene, or let's rephrase that. So they're big goal achievers in some ways that aren't as socially acceptable, but they're not guys that are making a ton of money or those types of things. Guys that are working in the recovery scene usually value spirituality, value time they spend with different people, value things that don't have as much to do with money and how much you make. That even with that, it's an experience that I know what I value, right? I know that in that I'm sharing time with somebody. I'm nurturing an idea that I like. I'm nurturing something that works with us. And so here's where it really comes into play when it comes to community. We enter into, in fact, I learned this from a guy in my community, Fred, the wheelchair Yoda, Daphne, Alabama. I remember you, man. But he said this thing. He's like, man, 13 years ago, he went through a big life change when he said this. It's now been like 20 years, but he's like, 13 years ago, I knew how to be selfish and I was an asshole. And now, 13 years later, I know how to be selfish and be a good person. So part of the interesting thing with him of interacting with people was that he had this defect of wanting to better himself, but he went to any lengths to walk over people and screw people over for that. But then later in his life, his personal value, in order to achieve it with other people and his community, he had to reciprocate with it. He had to share. His desire to be better or be around people that had a certain viewpoint was fueled by his community around him. But that was dependent upon him putting his effort in that. So that's very important. We walk into our communities, we walk into our 5 closest friends or whatever it is with the wrong idea oftentimes of how can I get? But really what we need to realize is how can we be a part of something? How can we fulfill this fundamental human need of connection in order to bring out the greatest sides of ourselves, which also bring out the greatest sides of other people? And it's not the chicken or the egg. They both affect each other. So whichever one you start with, just make sure it cycles from you to them, you to them. But this also brings up our moral foundation. So one of the key points to getting into our authenticity is going to revolve around this bedrock of what we believe in. And part of the reason why we need to know that is because when we get challenged, those are usually the things that go out the window, but they're the things which stabilize us. So this is one of those things. When we go to the guy who's going like, man, I don't have any confidence, I want to be better with women. And then you hear Steve Mayeda, he says like, hey, you know what? You just need to be yourself. Or you need to be the definition of confidence. You need to be you, independent of your situation. You need to be you. And it doesn't matter about winning or losing. It matters about, are you challenging yourself and can you still be yourself? Can you still be that? And you're like, fuck, man, this is just like some conceptual bullshit. Fuck, how do I get the thing? How do I get the win? Show me how to get the win, right? And so we don't see that because, it's something so far away. So this is one of those things where we're talking about like, man, why are we talking about this like a moral bedrock? Well, this is one of the things. We can learn how to get wins. That's what we do as a coaching service. I mean, we teach guys how to get wins. This is a very important thing. But one of the things is that you'll always see with any of the guys that go through our programs is we don't obsess about the wins. The wins aren't the highlight. That's part of the marketing. That's part of the, pizzazz and the bright, shiny, flashing lights is to get those wins. But what we care about is, can we be the man that carries those wins? Can we be the man that can challenge himself, in some of the greatest ways without having to change himself, right? So can we do that? Well, how we do that is we have an understanding of what we believe in. This is important because when we know what that is and we say, man, I love myself, I want to love myself, or I want to appreciate what honesty is. Well, you know what? If you want to know what honesty is, if you want to know what love is, if you want to know what self-adoration is, if you want to know what community is, if you want to know what sharing or giving is, if you want to know what principles are, if you want to know what honesty, open-mindedness, you want to know what willingness is, then let's see. Let's challenge those things. Let's learn what those things are. Because a lot of the times when we don't define what those things are through our life, through our experience, through our actions, guess what? Those things go out the window when we're challenged. So I may say, man, I value love. I want this. I deserve great people in my life. I deserve to have these things cultivated and so on. And then all of a sudden the knock comes on the door and says, Steve, you lost your job. Or Steve, you haven't made the car payment. We're taking it. And I go, fuck, man, this is bullshit. The world's against me. Fuck all this shit. I'm going to blame all these people. It's the problems outside of someone else, outside of myself. And it's all these other things. And we don't look at that value of whatever it is, whether that's love, whether that's acceptance, whether that's open-mindedness. And this is where we need to go back to. We can be pissed. We can be angry. We can be upset. We can always be those things, but these are emotions. Our identity is fueled by our foundation, our beliefs, who we are. So let's exercise those beliefs. All right, fuck, man, I'm pissed. I got this and that, blah, 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 blah. Everything's panicked. Okay, what can I do? Can I take some actions? Okay, can I calm down? Can I reach out to my community? And then how do I get back to, how can I be open-minded in this? How can I have the strength to do this? How can I have the discipline to be myself, to be me within life's challenges? Because it's going to challenge you. You don't need to find those challenges. They're going to challenge you. It's going to happen. You're living life, that shit's going to happen. You're sitting on the couch, maybe it's not going to happen. But if you're out there, you're going to be challenged. Remember, your standard should be your pain point. How you're challenged right now should be always how you're prepared to deal with stuff. All right? So that all being said, we need to have that foundation. So in order to get to know ourselves, we need to have that moral foundation. We need to build that, get to know it. We need to have that awareness of self with wins and losses and our even keel. We need to be able to work with all of these things that come up, right? And also the most important thing is all of this must be tested. See, we think that we can hack this or learn this, but you can't. There's some degree where you have to experience. Now, this was brought up on the call, is that it's like, so the only answer is then to be old. Well, no. You're going, if you gain some age, you're going to gain great wisdom and you're going to gain a lot of experience. You're going to gain confidence through that. You're going to gain all this sort of stuff. But when you have a community, when you have some templates to work, you're still going to feel pain. You're still going to feel resistance. But in order to gain confidence, you can do it a lot quicker when you have the right people around you. But if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not living you, and what I mean by you, I know every guy out there, you have big dreams, you have big ambitions. Some of them, they might be out of your reach right now, or they might be, you might be like, man, I'm never going to be an NBA basketball player, no matter how hard I work. That shit's not going to happen, right? I'm never going to be a lot of things. Some of those things just aren't going to happen. But the thing is I need to live what's in me, my passions. All right, man, I want to change the world. I was on a podcast the other day, and the guy said, man, it seems so many guys that come to your industry don't have a sense of altruistic beliefs that fuel them. They have beliefs of fear of not getting something, so they're trying to get something. I was like, man, that's totally true. But for me, I might have something where it's like, I want to work in this area. I want to grow in this area. I want to share. I want things to be opened up. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast, is for guys to have access points to being their best self. And I want to be a part of that so I can build a community of just awesome guys, man. And part of that's selfish, because when I need you guys, it's pretty badass, man. It's fucking amazing. So that all being said, Like, I need to activate that. I need to live that. I need to experience that. I need to know what it's like to win and lose in those areas. I need to know what it's like to not rely on blame or reactivity or angry flashes, but get to manage my emotions and feel them and not have them trigger points of armor for me to put up more. But then I need to also look at my morals, my beliefs as a foundation of what I can rely on. And sometimes it's really hard to put pain on top of love and think that it's going to hold. It's really hard to put loss or repetitious failure on top of hope, on top of acceptance. And a lot of the times when we look at some of these principles or beliefs to live by, when you really start defining them, we start to look at, man, those are some of the weakest things. If I do that, I might lose. If I always accept, man, then people are going to take advantage of me. Then I'm going to get screwed over again. Whereas the real story, and again, that's like that translation of men who are looking for confidence and men who have confidence. Men who have confidence say things that might not make sense to a guy who doesn't have confidence. And when we're saying things like, have faith in your principles, man, that's where the strength comes from. And you just got to live it to understand it. You have to walk in between those two paradigms of the guy that is seeking out confidence and the guy that has it in order to understand that higher level stuff. But man, let me tell you, if you do not know yourself, if you do not have a backbone of moral beliefs or things or philosophies that you live by, and you get success, you pour some sex on top of that, you pour some money on top of that, you pour some adoration on top of that, and that burns a fire of your insecurities of more, I must have more. Because that symbol, whether that's sex, whether that's, money, whether that's like social adoration or whatever it is, that is all just a mask so you don't have to look at yourself. And that's not something that we support here. In any case, guys, this is basically what we do here. This is why we do the Daily Awesome Podcast, to spread the word of how guys can better themselves. And if you want to better yourself, man, what you want to do is click the free stuff link down below. You can sign up for the Primal Drive. You can sign up on our body weight basics. You can sign up on, well, there's many different things that we do physically, but also dating, that's there. And most importantly, like I'd say, man, MD Excellence, probably the best place to start because there's tons of content. But the best part about it is there's calls. There's calls like that we have right now every Wednesday night. We have them throughout the week. And it's literally over 20 hours of calls that you can plug into and get a great perspective on life and work with an awesome community. And that's the third part of it, is the Facebook group. The interaction there is just second to none, man. It's one of the best things. It's really the best deal in town. It's amazing. I was just talking about this with different people when we were talking about marketing and all this stuff. It's like, man, I don't know how we created this. It's just the perfect mix of guys dedicated to working on themselves, constantly focused on that, but then also being able to progress and work with that range of the new guy coming in, the guy that's at the same level, wherever that is for that person, and then work with the guys that are on top, who just really have that wisdom and experience. It's a beautiful thing. So if you're looking for men's improvement and that's something that you want to take it seriously, that's where I'd start. You can find out more about it by clicking the free stuff link down below and then clicking the MD Excellence program description and all that sort of different stuff. In any case, guys, I'm getting back to this call. Steve Mayeda signing off. You guys have a great day. If you have any questions or comments, man, just put them in the comment box down below, or you can email me and let's get started. All right, we'll talk to you guys later tonight.